say good job to our folks that, you know, I looked at some of these stats, total bookings, Levi with 20 in the top of the charts, and also at 14.84% in total booking percentage. So Levi, wow, well done. And contacts over there, we've got Mark Smith with 162, Richard Reel with 158, and David Neshev, also a trainee, 153. So good job. And also some folks won watches. So not just any watch, but the Lamborghini watch. Eustace and Jorgen and Levi, you will be sporting those. All right. So diving in, if you need a title to today's pithy call, it is failure equals failing to ponder failure. Nice. Failure equals sign failing to ponder failure. So I'm going to talk about 4 lessons I learned the hard way, and we're going to talk some about failure. But just to get started, to get our minds right, I want you to write down an area in your life or a circumstance you experienced where you have failed. May have been when you were a kid. It may have been in sports, may have been blowing an examination in school. Just write down something that you failed at. You don't have to share it with the rest of the group, so you can cover your paper. May have been some personal failure. Write it down. Or think about it in your head. I don't want you to relive it. Just acknowledge an area. Now I want you to write down what you learned from that. Write down something you learned from that. Okay, and you can pick something as innocuous as I did, where I failed miserably at snow skiing, downhill skiing, and what I learned is that I was not going to be an Olympic skier. There you go. That's an easy one. So everybody write down an area you failed in and what you learned from that experience. All right, and that'll kick us off today. So growing up, I've got to tell you, I didn't fail much. I don't know why. God, I guess, blessed me with a certain degree of talent in the things I attempted. School was relatively easy. I worked at it some, but grades were not too hard to obtain. I seemed to be good at sports, and I felt self-confident as a young person, even though I really hadn't earned the right to be confident. So as I got a little bit older, in my 20s and my 30s, I had more and more failures, which taught me good lessons, which is what we're going to talk about today. I mean, I still cringe when I think about my 3rd season, my 3rd year as a salesperson. I had had a great rookie season and a greater 2nd year, and I became overconfident. I forgot the basics. I got away from the script because selling, for a while at least, got easy. Big packages, yeah, woohoo, things were going great. And then that 3rd season, I think God sort of provided some new questions on the test, so to speak. And I had a horrible time. My sales dropped for the year by 17%. My income plummeted. The entire team of people that I'd recruited in my little organization quit. I didn't do any of the basics. I was just in total panic mode. And that was a really nasty time for my self-confidence that season, I got to tell you. So I got beat up mentally. Has anybody been there before? Where you're just like, what? You're just like, why? Well, I wanted to quit. You know, I had been a leader, and I'd been growing a sales organization, and that was the, you know, I sat down with my director and said, you know, I've been thinking about selling. And he said, well, it's not selling you're having a problem with. And I'm like, oh, I think it is. He goes, no, it's not selling that you're having a problem with. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm not selling. I feel like I've forgotten everything. So that was just, I mean, I wrecked my car. It's like Murphy's Law. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. And so that time in my life, it just makes me cringe when I think about it. So since then, I've got to tell you, I've disappointed myself many times, and I'm not going to chronicle all those for you. But my biggest failure isn't just one specific failure like that. My biggest failure was ignoring the lessons of failure. That's the big headline for you guys. My biggest failure was ignoring the lessons of failure. So write this down. The biggest failure is ignoring the lessons of failure. Failure is a teacher. I didn't look at it that way when I was 23 and sucked. I was like, this sucks. I hate it. I want to quit. So I wasn't analyzing. I wasn't pondering my failures. I was just like slogging ahead and feeling like crap. So I want to tell you about 4 lessons that I learned the hard way. And hopefully you can learn these lessons too. They're super simple. I like simple stuff. So here's number 1. You've heard this from Dimitri. This is part of the culture at LGFG. First lesson, number 1, meaningful success is hard. Meaningful success is hard. Is that true? Some of you are like, I don't know. It's just hard. Well, guess what? Meaningful success is difficult. And here's the deal. You don't bounce back from failure. You grind back from failure. You know, I always had people say, well, you just got to bounce back from this. There's no bouncing. You have to grind. I mean, there's blood and sweat and tears involved in making a comeback. And so, but here's the good news. That aspect of clawing your way back is what makes you great later on. It's just truth. So here's the deal. When I had that season of sales and where I just bombed, I worked hard to make sure that never happened again. Okay. I mean, I thought about it. I planned out how I could make a comeback. I trained better. I got back to the script that I had departed from in my overconfidence the year before. So that it took some hard work. And I found a lot of times newbies, beginners, rookies, they sort of make light of tough challenges because they haven't failed enough yet. I like people who are older and grizzled and who've been through tough times, because that grit is what it takes to excel. I'm sorry, I wish there were a shortcut. Like I know all over my desktop here on my laptop, there's little icons and those are shortcuts, and I just go click, click, woo, here I am. I'm somewhere I wanted to be. It's fast, it's a shortcut. There's no shortcuts to anywhere worth going when you're talking about success. So sometimes inexperienced people underestimate the time and the effort and the grit it takes to excel. So point number 1, I want to reiterate and echo what we've heard on a lot of our calls from Dimitri and from some of our senior people when they just say, you know, it is tough, but it's worth it. All right, second thing, number 2, respect the work and talent of other people. Respect the work and talent of other people. Here's what I discovered probably when I was 40 something. You are not the center of the universe. And I was like, what? Really? I thought I was. All of us mostly think of ourselves. That's our default mode. But guess what? We're not the center of the universe. And I was really good at not maybe verbally criticizing people, but in my head, I would kind of nitpick at them and go, yeah, well, I'm better than he has. You know, blah, blah. It was always this sort of not a healthy competition in my head, but just kind of nitpicking. So I needed to honor other people and respect what they'd accomplished. And I hope that you do too. That's an important step. That's an important lesson that you can learn along the way. Respect what other people have accomplished and honor them, okay? Which leads to number 3. Number 3, this is something I was bad at when I was younger. Number 3 is seek help. Seek help. I had a really healthy ego or an unhealthy ego, or a big ego when I was younger and I was winning and I was near the top of the charts. I was like, yeah, check me out. I mean, before you fail, you kind of appreciate your friends, but after you fail, you know you need other people. And that was something I needed to learn, because I'm like, hey, I got this. Don't need anybody. You know, shouldn't we invite someone to our meeting to hear what they had to say? Nah, I know a lot. I mean, I was full of myself, didn't ask for help. And I think that hurt the organization that I was building at the time. So seek help, ask for help. You know, some of you are really good about that. And I know when I talk to Carl, he's always seeking input from people who are better than him, from some of the veterans in the group. That's fantastic. So ask around. I know from talking and coaching some of you, you do that, and that's a healthy thing. Don't let your ego. My director told me, and I still remember, he said, don't let your ego get in the way of your wallet. Meaning, be humble and seek help from other people. They can help you financially. All right. Fourth thing, number 4 lesson was, and this was hard for me, is practice humility even if you don't feel humble. Practice humility even if you don't feel humble. I was really proud of my humility. See, that's ironic. If some of you aren't smiling, you don't get it. Okay. I was proud of my humility. I'm like, hey, check me out how humble I am. So what I needed to do, I needed to ask questions. I needed to seek feedback. I needed to pursue constant improvement instead of saying, hey, look at all my awards. Not cool. So just practice being humble. We might do a series of calls on humility. It's good for us. Because especially when you get good, you start thinking, I'm the guy. And one of my favorite books, The Purpose-Driven Life, is the title of it. The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren. His first sentence just stunned me when I read it. When I was, I don't know, 20 years ago. Maybe it's not that old. But I read the opening chapter, the first book, first line. It said, it's not about you. And I was like, what? What kind of thesis statement is that for a book? It said, it's not about you. And I was shocked because I thought it was. Oh, well. All right, so let's do a little reflecting here. I want you to reflect on what you have failed at, areas in your life that you failed. And I'm telling you this now because at the time I wasn't interested in reflecting on my failures, because when I thought of failures, I felt embarrassment and I felt regret. Some of you read what you wrote down. If you wrote down something that was kind of heavy duty, and you go, ooh, that makes me feel bad. And you kind of put a line through it, or you fold the paper in half and go, I don't even want to think about that. I still feel embarrassed when I think of the first. I think I'm a pretty good presenter now, live, but my first presentation, I had enough confidence to stand up in front of the group, but I had just so much confidence that I hadn't prepared properly. So it didn't go as well as it could have. I was just running on talent, not cool. So what regret does, if you think of a failure that you wrote down or a big, huge shortcoming you had in your life, and you just feel regret or you feel ashamed, that closes your mind to reflection. And you need to reflect on that, because that experience is a teacher. And here's the deal. When you don't reflect on the mistakes you made, that leads to repetition. You understand? If you make a mistake and you don't take time at the end of the week to go, wow, I really blew it there. Wonder why. How could I change that? If you don't reflect for just a few minutes on that, then you tend to repeat. So lack of reflection leads to repetition. Most people in the world do not reflect on what they accomplished or didn't accomplish during the week. They just like, that week's done, next, back to work. And so if you take a few minutes, maybe on Sunday night or maybe Monday morning, come in early to the office and just take a few minutes to reflect and to plan. That goes so far in your growth. So you repeat failure when you don't learn from failure. So that's just, I'm throwing out these little pearls of wisdom. So that's one too. So there you go. So when failure comes into your life and you're feeling like I am just really hurting right now, when failure comes to your door, invite him in for tea. What is this teacher here for? Yeah? It's kind of a different way of looking at it. Failure teaches you what matters. I mean, most of you, if you think about your life right now, whenever you were winning and successful and on top of things, and no matter what it was, chances are you weren't learning as much as when you stumbled and when you didn't do as well, right? The real growth happens through the challenge, not through the coasting, right? When you're coasting, you're not learning. So failure teaches you what matters. So appreciate it, even though at the time it will not be fun. I promise, you know that. So I'll just leave you with 2 questions you can talk about as a group. And then if you have a comment, you can jump in now. What have you learned from failure? That's my biggest question. What have you learned from failure? And if you're in a group and you have time before you start dialing or before you go home to talk about some of the things that the positive aspects as you reflect on your failures that have come from that in your life, that would be a fantastic discussion and an encouragement to the other people in the office. Okay? And then of the 4 lessons I talked about, which could you practice this week? Meaningful success is difficult. Respecting the talent and work of other people. Seeking help and practicing humility. Which of those could you take up and actually practice? Mindfully, not just, but you actually intentionally try that. That would be cool. All right, so that's what I want to talk about. I just want you to remember that failure is failing to ponder failure. I like that. I thought that was catchy. So anybody have anything they want to share? I know when we do something like this, we talk about this kind of topic, no one really chimes in and goes, hey, let me kind of bare my soul to everybody and tell you where I really trashed myself emotionally. But does anybody have a thought or a story or anecdote? Some of you go up.
Hello.
Who is that? Lord? Who is it? Who's talking?
It's Filippo. It's actually my first day working here.
Oh, Filippo. All right, let's give him a hand. First day. Woo! Yeah, there are people clapping, even though you can't hear him or see him, Filippo. Well, congratulations on your first day. Go ahead.
It's funny what you said, because I'm not going to say whatever I failed, but it was connected in the way that I am very bad in being humble, yeah? And because of that, I didn't seek help, and consequently, I also didn't respect the work and the talent of other people, because I thought, hell, I am the best here. Is it impossible that it's going to happen like this? And because of that, I didn't have meaningful success yet. That's what I'm going to practice then this week.
That's great. So those all actually connect for you in a nice little sequence. That I appreciate you sharing that. I am so glad that you're part of the LGFG team.
Thank you.
Because God has put you here to help you. He's going to let you fail a lot. It's awesome. So, he'll take some of those rough edges and he will just sand those off through failure. So, well, anyway, that's great. So thanks for sharing. I appreciate that. All right. Anybody else? Welcome aboard, Philippe. Let's see.
Thank you.
Yeah. Everybody's happy. Everybody's ready to go. All right. Well, let me encourage you to go out and fail this week. Have a good one. And you know what I mean. I want you to do well. But along the way, ponder your week, successes and failures. All right. That's it for now. Go win. We will talk to you 1 week from now, and I will hopefully be in good shape after my gig with my band this next weekend. So carry on. I appreciate being in business with you. See ya.